Okay, now I'd like to take a deeper dive into project stages within aggregation pipelines. And what I'd like to look at is an introduction to reshaping. What I'm going to try to touch on here are the types of reshaping operations that should be most common in the applications that you develop. So we've seen some simple projections in aggregation pipelines. Now let's look at some that are a little bit more complex. These are an example of what I like to think of as promoting nested fields. Let's dive into this example so you can see what I mean. So here we're doing a match. So imagine that you're running a report or responding to a query to your website, or you have an application that is fielding a query to your website. And what you're looking for are all companies where Greylock partners participated in some round of funding. Okay, so by participated, we simply mean that Greylock partners invested in the company. So just a quick refresher, within company documents, we have a funding rounds field that has as its value an array. And within that array, each element is a document that summarizes a round of funding, including the raised amount and the year in which the funding round occurred. There's also an investments field. That investments field lists the organizations and individuals that participated in a given round of funding. So going back to our match, we're looking at the funding rounds field, the investments field contained by all documents in the funding rounds array, and within each element of the investments array, we're going to look for the permalink value of a financial org nested document, and only retrieve documents where this permalink field matches the string Greylock. So taking a look again, here's an example. We're matching against elements of the funding rounds array. This is one. Investments, financial org, and finally permalink. And we're looking for Greylock as the value of this field. Okay, so using dot notation, we have driven down into the financial org document for each investor. Now what we're going to do in terms of output is for project, again, we're going to suppress the underscore ID and include the name, but we're also going to promote some nested fields here. So we're going to dive into the IPO field and the funding rounds field and take values from those nested documents and arrays and make them top-level values in the documents that we produce as output from this aggregation pipeline. Let's run this once so you can see what I mean. So running this, each document has a field for name. It also has a field for funders. And for those companies that actually have gone through an IPO, there is an IPO year and valuation. Note that in all of these documents, these are top-level fields, and the values are associated with those top-level fields. These are values that we, given our project statement, promoted from nested documents and arrays. This is actually similar to what you might see in a Linux shell like Bash. If we specify $1 inside quotes, then MongoDB interprets this as give me the value identified by this key. The dollar means give me the value. So we're saying find the IPO nested document and the pub year value of that nested document, and assign that as the value for the IPO key in all output documents. We do something very similar for valuation. What we're doing here for funders is essentially the same thing. It's just that we have to drive a lot deeper into our document to go all the way down to the permalink for the financial org within the investments array, which is a subfield of each element in the funding rounds array, and pulling out the funders. Now, one thing you might have noticed is that we're seeing multiple values printed out for funders. In fact, we're seeing an array of arrays. The reason for that is because for every funding round, we're going to get potentially many investors, is that we know that funding rounds are represented by an array, and we know that all of the funders are contained within an array called investments. So what's happening here is the aggregation framework knows that we want to see the financial org.permalink value for each entry in the investments array for every funding round. But because we're only specifying that we want to see this one value, rather than print out this entire document or anything else here, we're simply including this value for every entry in investments for every funding round. So an array of arrays is built up, but that array of arrays is composed only of the field values that we are explicitly projecting out here. If we take a look at an IPO document, we're taking IPO.pubyear and IPO.valuation amount, and for every company that has had an IPO, we're using those values to construct top-level fields in our output documents. So again, these are examples of promoting nested fields. In later lessons, we'll see how we can perform arithmetic operations, string operations, operations involving dates, and a number of other types of operations to produce documents outputted from a project stage of all shapes and sizes. Just about the only thing we can't do from a project stage, relatively speaking, is change the data type for a value. We have lots of power in what type of documents we construct using a project stage. Here is where we begin to see some hints of that. The second example I want to show you in this lesson is an example of actually constructing a new document from values in our input document. It's constructing a new nested document from values we receive in input documents. So in this case, what we're going to do is take the top level values of founded year, founded month, and founded day, and create a nested document called founded that has year, month, and day fields for every document that matches our filter. So running this, we can see that our document has the right shape. And just to be completely clear what we're doing, we're taking these values here for founded year, founded month, and founded day, and in our output documents are creating a nested document called founded, essentially aggregating together those values for the day on which a company was founded into a single nested document in our output documents, as we see here. And we can actually see that we're missing some values in order to get the complete picture. So in some ways, this is going the opposite direction of promoting nested fields. We're essentially creating a nested document from some top-level fields. So again, you have a lot of control, a lot of power, a lot of flexibility in how you reshape documents using a project stage in the aggregation framework.